Test, test, test. Welcome back to The Practical Woodsman. I'm Rut, the creator and host of The Practical Woodsman. That's right, it's my super-duper genius which has brought this all into existence. Scientists and philosophers everywhere, studying my noggin, trying to figure out how it works and harness its powers. I appreciate you being back with me for this episode of the Practical Woodsman podcast. This is a part 2, a sequel to our last episode where we talked about bushcraft on a budget, things you've already got around your house that you can turn into these wonderful, amazing tools for the woods. We got to do the musical introduction first to get us in the mood, winkety winkety, so don't go nowhere. We'll be right here when that ends.
Put a camp up right here.
Well, folks, it's wonderful to have you back with me for this episode of The Practical Woodsman. And what we're going to try to do is the same thing we tried to do last time, is we're going to try to, for those of you who are just listening, driving down the road in your big rigs, listening to this show, I'm really going to try to describe what we're looking at and stuff like that to keep you guys in the loop so you all don't feel left out. But if you'd like to see the video, make sure you subscribe to The Practical Woodsman on Rumble or YouTube. Now, I will say something about Rumble. I had to delete the old Practical Woodsman channel on Rumble, and that was so that I could start doing live streams on Saturdays straight to Rumble and Locals and YouTube all at the same time. And so what I had to do is I had to delete the old Rumble channel. I had to create a brand new one. So everything new will be going to that brand new Rumble channel. If you were subscribed to me on Rumble, and all of a sudden you're like, where the heck did the Practical Woodsman go? Well, that's why. Just search for me again. The new channel will come up. You can subscribe to me there. Got a lot to talk about in this episode of the show. So many things, really, that I think we'll end up having like a part 3 to this series. But where to start? Where to start? I'll tell you some things that I've got in mind before we do get started. You ever seen these Yuko candle lanterns? The one I had broke. So all I've got is the like neoprene cover, and I've got one of the candles here. They're pretty expensive. I mean, if you're a millionaire, they're probably not expensive, but if you're a regular guy like me, things like that can get expensive. And you think, well, for what it's made out of, just a little bit of aluminum and glass, what they ask for it is quite expensive. So I thought that what we might do is we might try to make our own. I've never done this before, but I got a little jar here, and I thought, well, we'll just make our own little, holding up the wrong thing. We'll make our own Yuko candle. I know the principles of what makes it work. And I think with this little jar that I'm holding up, this is a little honey jar for those of you just listening. It's a little glass honey jar with a tin lid. And I think we can turn that into our very own Yuko candle lantern. Now, if y'all ain't seen a Yuko candle lantern before, it works off the same principles as like an oil storm lantern. The flame is encased in glass, and it's got like a little chimney roof on the top. And so we're just going to mimic that same principle with our little glass jar here. Another thing I want to talk about, knives. I want to talk about map protection. I want to talk about stoves. I'm thinking about making a stove here for us today. And this is something you might have seen done before, but I want to show you off some of the more expensive stoves that you can get out there and show you how they're completely unnecessary. I want to talk about pants, a little bit of clothing for the woods, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. I will tell you, about 6-7 years ago, funds were pretty tight, but I really wanted to get out on this long excursion into the backcountry, and I had worn out all of my outdoorsman pants. So I just sifted through my drawer, and what I found was an old pair of dress pants. Now, you might not think that dress pants would make a very good pant for the woods until you remember that the only thing that matters is the material that they're made out of. the material that they're made out of, you're trying to mimic the qualities that you would pay for in like a pair of highfalutin pants. And most outdoors pants, quick dry pants, are made out of polyester or nylon. Well, guess what? Old pair of tan nylon dress pants do the exact same thing. And so while I'm thinking about it, let me flash some pictures up here on the screen for those of you who are watching of this trip I took wearing these dress pants. I just retired them from formal wear, and I used them out in the woods. You know, another thing you want to keep in mind with these pants that you wear out into the woods, besides them being quick dry, is you want pants that will allow for a lot of movement. That's why you don't see a lot of guys or girls who are really taking a deep excursion into the woods wearing jeans. Most of the time you see people wearing jeans, they ain't too far deep in the woods because they're not doing a lot of movement or exercise or hiking or, you know, climbing or anything like that. So the pants that you want for a long excursion in the woods, you want plenty of movement in them. And polyester allows for that. Dress pants typically allow for that. I mean, you think about a dress pant compared to like a jean. A dress pant fits pretty loose on you. And so it allows for a lot of movement. It's really nice. I want to talk about knives. So because we've got so much to talk about, let's just get into this. And let's start with knives. My favorite knives on the market right now come from PKS, Pathfinder Knife Shop. And they are not cheap, but they're not as expensive as a lot of other knives either. So they're a pretty good deal. If you're going to have a one tool for the woods, you know, your belt knife, your hip knife can do that. And if you're going to spend a lot of money on something, you know, you'd like your knife to do that. This is called the PKS Mountaineer. It used to be called the Mountain Lion. But I really like this style of knife. It's got and it's funny that now that I'm talking about knives, I literally just remembered, I had this big old long dream last night about knives. I must have been thinking about doing this show today. But I really like this design where it's got a drop tip point. And I really just like kind of like a big slab of high carbon steel with a really sharp edge. I think that's called a Scandi grind. I like that. I like the drop tip. And I like a 5-inch blade. And so that's what I'm holding up here for everybody. Of course, you can see that. You can go to the PKS knife store. This knife that I'm holding up here is almost always sold out. That's a stinker, ain't it? So you got to get usually on a waiting list to get one of these. And a sheath doesn't automatically come with it, and it's not included in the price. So you're looking at the knife and you say, okay, I'm just throwing some prices out here. I don't remember what I paid for this. But you say $100 for the knife, great. Then you add in the sheath, then you add in the shipping. You have to wait like 2-3 weeks. If it's in stock. If it's not in stock, then you might have to wait a month or two. The cost gets really high up there. You might be paying over $200 for this knife. Well, remember the theme of our show today. It's all about saving money, working with what you've already got, or spending very little money on something like that. So if you can imagine, I mean, those of you watching the show, you see the hardiness of that knife. You can imagine I could just chop through anything with that. Do I have to spend $200 to be able to do that? In reality, not really. Here's a knife that came for free with, I think, a chopping board that I ordered, like a camping chopping board. They just threw the knife in for free. That's how little value I reckon that they say that this has. You know, now I'm holding this. It looks like a really cheap kitchen knife. It's super sharp. It comes super sharp, but you could see it doesn't really have any girth to the thing. But you might be wondering, would we be able to chop through wood around camp with something like this? Do I really need a $300, $200 knife to do camp chores? Or could I just go to the dollar store and find any knife like this? And would it get me through several different outings in the woods? The answer is, I suspect, yes, we could. I've got some firewood over here. Let's go see if we can split some firewood with this baby. All right. See where the camera is there. All right, so we've got some wood here, and we've got this knife. Let's just see what we can do about it. You know, and look at that. It's not a very thick knife. I hope I'm in the camera. But it's not a very thick knife. But you know, you could get something like this for $1, literally, if you just go to the dollar store. Right? It hasn't affected the edge at all. The edge is still as sharp as can be. Let's do that again. So there you go. $1 knife. So that's one of the reasons why I think it's ridiculous when you see these bushcrafters take these really hardy knives out there. Look, I'm going to show you why this knife is worth $2 million. And they take this knife out into the woods, and they do things like we just did with a $1 knife, and they go, see how tough that knife is? It's fine. A $1 knife will do the same thing in most cases. So you do not need to spend a ton of money. Now, if you've got the money for something like this, well, I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful piece of gear, and you know, I love quality, beautiful gear. But if you don't have the money for something like this, should it keep you out of the woods? No, not when you can get a $1 knife. And it'll do almost all the same things that you want it to do around any camp or out in the woods. So don't let lack of funds for, you know, a super duper knife keep you from going out into the woods. Let's talk for a second about coffee. I have here a coffee set, the titanium coffee set. And it's a beautiful cup that comes with a coffee filter, a titanium coffee filter. All right, and you're looking at probably $100 for something like that. Now, is something like that necessary? No, because you can go to the store, which I did, to check prices on instant coffee. And I've said in the past, you know, I'm a coffee snob. When I'm at home, I am definitely a coffee snob. I'm drinking some snobbish coffee right now. But there's something about being in the woods. When I get out into the woods, my taste buds change. I don't know if it's the smoke of the fire or the natural air or what it is, but cheaper coffee does not taste like cheaper coffee to me in the woods. What I mean is I'm not as picky in the woods. So any type of instant coffee typically will satisfy me when I'm out in the woods. So with that in mind, take a look at this quick video of me at Walmart checking out prices of instant coffee. You'll see that they only cost $1. Now, in the video that you're about to see, I thought I was looking at like 60-cent coffee or something like that. What I didn't realize, those were all sold out. I was looking at these two coffees here, this Folgers and this Nescafe Taster's Choice. Taster's Choice, for a box of 6 packets of instant coffee, ended up costing me like $1.09 or something like that. So about $1. Anyway, take a look at the video to see how little it costs to get yourself some coffee, some instant coffee for the woods. Seven packets for, let's see, yeah, 7 packets for $1.23. Folgers. Well, you can't hardly beat that. Here you got Taster's Choice for 90 cents. Look at that. How many packs you get? 6 packs. It's pretty good. Of course, you got to compare that to the Starbucks Via, which is almost $5.50. And but 90 cents. I'm gonna get that and try it. I'll get a box of that Folgers too and try that. All right, so let's say though that you don't like the idea of drinking instant coffee. Let's say that it does bother you to drink instant coffee out in the woods, and you really got a hankering for pour over coffee like this titanium set that I just showed you. Do you need to spend $100 on a titanium pour over set? You don't. Let me show you something really interesting. We're going to make this right now. I've never done this before, but it's something that you can do around the house if you got an old clothes hanger or if you got anything. What I'm going to do is I've got some of the old chicken wire over here. It's not really chicken wire. It's like garden wire. But I'm going to take some clippers to that garden wire, and we're just going to make a spiral. So we're going to clip a line of wire. We're going to spiral it, and then we're going to pull it apart, and then you're going to have a portable, what would we call it? Like a portable funnel in order to put your coffee filters and then have a pour over system for coffee out in the woods using whatever coffee you've got, any highfalutin coffee you have. See, what I'm thinking about is you can actually go to Amazon and you can buy like these silicone pour over sets. You can do that if you want to, but you don't have to. I mean, there can be a lot of pleasure, can't there, in making your own gear and simplifying things as much as possible. So for those of you who are just listening, I'm holding up this silicone thing that I got off Amazon or got at Walmart years ago, and it's just this silicone collapsible thing. And you might think, well, you can't beat that because it collapses and then it disappears into your pack, and you never worry about that until you need it. And what those things do is they take a filter. You can then put a filter in that silicone cone and use it as a pour over coffee setup. But we're going to do that with wire right now. Let's go over to my workbench and do that, and we'll be right back here in a second. All right, now what we want to do is we just want to wind this, and just do that with my hands. There you go. It's perfect. There you go. And so then what you would do is you just set that on top of your cup right there, and then you've got a pour over system. Let's get back over to the main camera and show this off. All right, so there's the pour over system using a simple wire. And you know, the good thing about this wire system is you can just collapse that when you get packing. When you're packing along, you just collapse it and then just stuffs in your pack somewhere. When you're ready to go, you unwind it like this. Got your coffee in your filter there. That fits right down in there like that. And there's your pour over system. Water purification. In the previous episode, I talked about how you don't need to buy special iodine tablets to purify your water. You can just simply use a little household bleach that you've got, and the way you do that is just 2 little drops per liter, and then you tighten the seal, or you put the cap on your bottle and you shake that around a little bit, and you wait about 30 minutes, and then your water will be fresh to drink. So you don't really need to be worrying about spending a lot of money on highfalutin water filters, like a Katahdin water filter or anything like that. You know, those pump filters. Let me show you. Got one here. For those of you just listening, it's a pump system with tubes coming out of it, and you just put one end into the water, you put the other end into your bottle, and you pump it, and it filters your water. This thing, I actually just loan out to others. I don't think I've ever personally taken this out into the woods with me. I keep them in stock, but I don't use them. I always use those iodine tablets, or I use bleach, Clorox, you know. Let's say that you don't trust the bleach, or you don't trust the iodine tablets. Do you need to spend $50? I mean, those water filters can get really expensive. They really can. They can get up to $80. The first one I ever bought was supposed to be kind of an indestructible, one purchase for life type thing, because it wasn't made with a paper filter. It was made with a ceramic filter. And so I got suckered into spending. I think I spent over $200, maybe close to $300 on that filter. And do you know, it only lasted me one season. So I only got to take it out maybe 4 or 5 times, and it was kaput. So I don't recommend them. But if you're dead set on a filter, get yourself one of these life straws. They don't cost nothing. But what I recommend more than any of that is just learning to find fresh water, clean water in the woods. Remember, water in its natural state in the woods is clean. In order for it to not be drinkable for you or not good for you, it has to be contaminated with something, meaning that an animal has had to have died nearby, or there has to have been an animal that has peed or pooped nearby. And so you can learn to find clean water in the woods very easily without needing to spend $80 or more on these silly water filters. How about fire starting? I got a ton of these ferrocerium rods, and they come all fancy, boys. I'll tell you what. People putting these really handsome little wooden butts on them and putting compasses in the butt of that wooden handle, and they make them look real purty. I think it's ridiculous for something so stupid. It's something that's just supposed to start a fire. I mean, would you spend that much time beautifying a Bic lighter? Most of us wouldn't, so I don't know why people spend time beautifying their ferrocerium rod, or why they insist on having a wood handle. You know what a wood handle does? It covers up half of the usable ferrocerium rod. So I just like these plain ferrocerium rods, but they can get expensive too. I wanted to tell you that 10 years ago, I went on eBay, and I think I paid $1 each for these ferrocerium rods. And I'm telling you what I'm holding up for the camera for these folks who are watching, these things are monsters. Compared to these other ferrocerium rods, which are really tiny, these ones I got off eBay, I think they shipped from China, to be honest, but they're $1. And what I did was I just put some electrical tape and some string at the end to create a loop so that I could run like a clip through it or something. Did the same with all these. But I mean, they're monsters. You get yourself one of these for $1, you'll never need another ferrocerium rod again. These things are 10 years old, and they still strike just fine. So I don't recommend going out and spending a lot of money on stupid beautified ferrocerium rods. The only thing you need is the rod. And if you carry a pocket knife, the back of your pocket knife will strike that ferrocerium rod. So there's no sense in being suckered into believing that something with a wooden handle and a compass on it is superior to just any old ferrocerium rod you can get your hands on. All right, so that's fire starting. Now there are some benefits to carrying a ferrocerium rod, ferro rods they call them. Other than them just being fun, you don't have to worry about the wind blowing them out. You don't have to worry about them getting wet and then not working on you. You don't usually have to worry about them running out of fuel. The things last forever. You get 1 or 2 or 3, and that's probably going to start all of your fires for the rest of your life, if that's all you're using. But I always remember the practical woodsman rule of 3s. There are certain things that are so important to me out in the backcountry that I don't go in with just one of that type of thing. So, for example, I don't go into the backcountry with just one way to start a fire. I go in with at least 3 different ways to start a fire. And considering the fact that I'm always carrying a ferrocerium rod in my pocket in my day-to-day life, you guys want to see it, don't you? All right, let me get it. It's on my keychain. There you go. My ferrocerium rod, little tiny thing with a whistle on the end of it that I've got on my keychain. So I'm always carrying one in my pocket, even when I go out in the deep woods. But when I go out in the deep woods, then I have the ferro rod that is dedicated to my fire kit. Then I have a lighter, a regular lighter. And I also have regular matches. You know how many matches you can get at the dollar store? How many boxes of matches you can get at the dollar store for $1? Enough matches to last you for years for $1. Now, a lot of people think they got to spend extra special money on waterproof matches, but I don't mess with them. I get these regular matches from the dollar store, and you've seen, those of you who are watching, I keep them in a little plastic snack baggie, and that keeps them dry until I need to get them out and use them. And that's just a little tiny box, you guys listening. What I'm holding up to the camera there, it's a 32 count wooden matches. It'll fit right down in any camp cup or anything like that. Start plenty of fires. And these lighters, I get these from the dollar store. They've got an extended nozzle on them. This is not just like a regular Bic. This has an extended nozzle on it. And so that'll allow you to get down under your kindling and stuff, you know, where you're trying to get a fire started. It'll let you get your hand down in there, and that little nozzle sticks out and helps you get your fire started without your hand knocking down your whole fire bundle that you've meticulously put together. All right, so there's starting fires. Let's talk for a second about multi-tools. The previous time we talked about how you don't really need a multi-tool. Multi-tool, of course, is I think it's important to carry a Swiss Army knife or something in your pocket all the time. But if you want something dedicated to the woods, do you have to be scared off from going into the woods because you can't afford, for example, a $120 Leatherman multi-tool? And that's what I'm holding up for the camera right now. This is the Leatherman Signal. And of course it comes with pliers and some blades and some other things. These Leathermen are really well made. They're worth $100. And if you take moderate care of them, they'll last for probably your lifetime. But do you have to spend $100 on a Leatherman tool so that you have a multi-tool out in the woods? No. Here's one that's $6. Does the same thing. The exact same thing. Now, is it as robust as this Leatherman multi-tool? Probably not. It's not as well made. But it does all the same things. It's got the pliers. It's got knives. And if you just want something to throw into your bag, it does not have to be. I reckon what I'm trying to tell you is you don't have to worry about what other people think. Get that out of your head when we're talking about being a woodsman or getting outdoors. Think about how silly some people might think. They see you hiking in the backcountry, not wearing some kind of super sexy cargo pant, but instead just a polyester dress pant. They might think you're silly. You got to stop caring about what people think. You're out there for the experience of the woods, love of nature, intimacy with the backcountry. For that, you don't need to spend very much money at all. And what other people think of you by seeing the pictures of you out there, seeing you in a video or whatever, does not matter. It does not matter at all. That's not the point at all of being out there. So there you go. Well, $5 or $6 multi-tool. I think I got that from Walmart or something. It's got it's got the pliers. It's a no-name. This is a no-name multi-tool, but it's got a saw in there. Let's see if I can get that saw out. Look at that. Little wood saw on it. It's got some blades in there. It does everything. everything that Leatherman does. Now, if you got the money, it's not going to break the bank. Well, then, of course, I would recommend getting the better quality stuff. But don't let the lack of being able to get the better quality stuff keep you out of the backcountry or keep you away from experiencing the wilderness. Soap. They sell this soap. They call it Wilderness Wash. And this has citronella in it. This is liquid soap. It comes in this little bottle, and I think I got that from a Cabela's when I was on vacation at the beach. Went to a big, huge Cabela's shop, and they had this soap here, and I thought, well, I'll try that. Well, guess what about this soap? You think it's going to be safe in the water and stuff. It ain't. No soap is safe in the water. So you're washing pans and pots in the creek, or you're washing yourself off in the creek. You can't just take this soap. You can't just wade down into the water and start washing off with this stuff in a creek. It'll kill the wildlife. It'll upset the eco balance in that creek. So no matter what soap you get, whether you pay $30 for it or whether you pay $1 for it, you can't use it in the water. What you have to do is you have to scoop out that water, go up onto the bank, and wash there on the bank. That's whether it's your pots and pans, whether it's your naked body, whatever the case is. So knowing that, does it make sense to spend $20 on this little bottle of citronella soap, this little liquid soap? It doesn't. I'll tell you what you do the next time you stay at a Red Roof Inn or any hotel. You grab one of their soaps that they've got out there for you in the bathroom. You tuck that into your pocket. There you've got soap to take out into the woods with you. If you don't want to do that, I recommend ivory soap. And here's a bar that I just broke in half. This is ivory soap that's non-scented. So it's just the natural ivory scent. And what I'll do is I wrap that in a bandana. I've showed this off before. You can take any old bandana. You wash with that, you get done, stick that in a bandana and roll that up. That bandana will soak up some of those suds and that leftover moisture and stuff, but as you travel, it'll dry out. So when you get into camp then, you can get this out of your bandana, your kerchief, and then you'll usually have a pretty dry bar of soap there. So that's if you absolutely feel like you need soap out in the backcountry. You remember, the thing that matters most when it comes to soap is suds. It's the bubbles. So I see a lot of these fancy soaps being sold by these outfitter stores, and one of their marketing things is that it's low suds. It hardly suds up at all. Well, that's a problem, isn't it? When you remember that the most important part of soap is its suds. That's what loosens the grease and stuff on their pots and pans. That's what carries germs off your body. So, something like this, a traveler's soap, or just a block of ivory soap that you broke into, and ivory soap costs hardly anything, by the way, folks, provide a lot of suds, and the suds are what you want. Now, because I don't want to run out of time, let's talk about two things. And then what I want to get into is I want to get into that homemade Yuko candle, and I want to get into making our own little pop can stove. All right, you've probably seen other people do that. We're going to do it here just to show you how simple it is. I think a lot of folks overcomplicate it. We're not looking for complicated. We're looking for practical and simple. So I've got an empty pop can here. Some of you guys might call this a Coke can or a soda can, but you're all wrong. This is a pop can, and we're going to make it into a stove. But before we get into that, let's talk about what I'm holding up here for the camera. I'm holding up an outdated iPhone. This is an iPhone SE second generation, I believe. The reason I'm holding this up is because maybe you would like a really nice camera for your adventures. There's a couple options you could run out there. You could spend $1,000 or more on a phone. You know, what I'm using right now to record this is an iPad and my iPhone 16 Pro Max, which cost me $1 billion. But it's nice. I really like it. And I got to thinking, I've got some phones stored around here, outdated phones that nobody wants. You can't, they drop in value as soon as the new one comes out. But you could go on to eBay, or you could go onto Facebook Marketplace. Do you know what the beauty of these things is? Let's say you don't need it as a phone. You just want something that you can record videos and take pictures in really awesome quality, with an awesome quality image. And I thought, well, there you go. If I wanted a tool like that, let's say that the phone I'm using day by day is just a banger-upper. It's not, I didn't spend a whole ton of money on it, but I want a dedicated camera where I can record videos and take pictures. What I would do is I would not go out shopping for a camera. I would go on eBay or Facebook Marketplace, and I would type in iPhones for sale. And I would find some iPhone that's just a couple generations old, and I would buy that for $50. The beauty of these is that they record in 4K video. They have amazing sound to them, and you can take a gajillion pictures with them. They've got great memory. For just a little bit of money, you could buy an old, used, outdated iPhone and have a wonderful device there for making these videos and stuff like that. So there's an idea. All right, now I want to show off a map case. This looks like a military map case, and it's got these straps here with Velcro. And you open that up, and it's got some pockets and stuff like that. But one of the things, this is a dedicated map case, and it's got this plastic enclosed portion here where you can put your maps in there, and then you seal that with Velcro, and that protects your map from the weather. Boy, it's pretty. I mean, it's a cool looking thing. And maybe you think, I need that cool looking thing. I need that cool looking thing so I can look cool when I go out into the backcountry. Or maybe I just feel like that's so useful. I could keep my journal book in there, my pens and stuff. And you could. I've never used this. And I've never used anything like this before. I have it. I've never used it. You know why? Because when it comes right down to it, and I want to load up my pack, there's a lot going on there. I don't need that much going on. All these straps and all this stuff, all these pockets and stuff, simply for protecting my map from weather. You know what I have always used for protecting my map from weather? Those watching can see that I'm holding up a regular freezer bag. Just a regular plastic Ziploc freezer bag. And what you do is you take your Ziploc freezer bag, which costs nothing. Again, you can go to the dollar store. You can buy 20 of them for $1. And you just put your map inside there, seal that up, stick that in your pocket, and now your map is protected. And when you need your map, you just pull this out of your pocket, and hopefully you're out of the rain. That's the one thing, you know, if you're using like a regular size freezer bag, you actually have to take the map out in order to unfold it and see where you're going and stuff like that. So that's a minor drawback. Now, I don't know how much you're going to pay for something like this military map case, but I can go to Walmart. I got it right here. I can go to Walmart and I can buy a silicone Ziploc bag, which will fit an 8.5 sheet of paper just fine for next to nothing. I guarantee it don't cost as much as this highfalutin military map case. So, and I actually prefer these things because there's no bells and whistles to them. There's not all this extra stuff, all this extra unnecessary stuff. It's a silicone Ziploc bag, and you just print off your map, stick it in there, Ziploc it, and this thing can be used 1,000,000 times over. So I think I got 2 for $3 or $5 or something like that. You can see it protects maps just fine. For those of you just listening, I'm holding it up to the camera and everybody can see my map. I've got actually several maps in there. In the previous episode, I talked about how I don't like to throw containers away. And so I'm holding up this empty glass jar here for the camera. Jelly come in that, like grape jelly come in that. And I couldn't bring myself to throw it away, so I cleaned it out. And now I've got this beautiful glass jar I can use for anything I want. In the previous episode, I showed you how I cleaned out this peanut butter jar for my yerba mate, which is a type of tea. Since that show, I've cleaned out another peanut butter jar, which is bigger. And you just never know when those are going to come in handy. Well, this morning, in preparation for this, I cleaned out another container that I want to show you. It's a little puck, that my styling gel comes in. It's not really gel, it's a styling fiber, they call it. But anyway, this is what I use to style my hair. And I keep these. And let me show you what they're perfect for. They're perfect for these little face pads, these little flat, round cotton face pads. And I keep a bunch in there after I've dipped them into cotton or dipped them into wax. So these face pads, this is also something that you can get at the dollar store. For like $1, you can get almost 200 of these little cotton face pads. I see a lot of people in my comments talking about how they keep cotton dipped in Vaseline. You know, I started off doing that too because I saw it on I saw somebody talk about it on TV, and then it become gospel. That's what you do when you go into the woods. That's what you do for fire starter. I'll tell you why I don't like dipping my cotton balls in Vaseline, because it's important to keep part of the cotton dry. That's your tinder. The Vaseline is not going to take a spark like your tinder will. And so anything that gets gummed up by that Vaseline, let's say you got a bunch of cotton balls, you put them in a bunch of Vaseline, and they get all gummed up with that Vaseline, well then you've just ruined all of your tinder. Your tinder is supposed to be very light and fluffy and dry. And so I prefer these face pads dipped in a little bit of wax, about halfway, and I keep the other half dry. And then I store them in this little puck here, this little round puck that is just a reused hair product thing. So I've got some wax over here. This is just like, I like to keep candles for ambiance and stuff like that. Let's go over to where my wax is melting. Let's dip a couple of these, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make our Yuko candle here. Let's get into that. All right, so I've got some wax melting right here on this coffee warmer, and the way I do this is I just take some needle nose pliers. I'm going to dip that into about halfway into the wax, and then you got to set them aside to dry. All right, and you can just use any kind of plastic thing like that, like this thing that I'm holding here, because that wax is going to dry on there. So you don't want to put it on anything that's going to absorb that wax. And there we go. And that'll cool down pretty quick. It's not ready yet, but that'll cool down and harden pretty quick. And see, then when it comes time for you to start your fire, you can fluff this part here. You can keep all that intact and just fluff the back end here. Let me see if I can show you that. So when I'm starting a fire, I fluff this like this, because you want to make that into tinder. You know, that's the way a fire starts, with tinder and kindling and fire starter. But to take an initial spark, you want something really fluffy and light that will just take the slightest spark. And so there you go. That's what I would use. And my spark would hit like in here somewhere, and it would light that. So that's how that works. All right, now another thing I want to do with this wax here is we're going to try to make our Yuko candle. And in order to do that, we want to put wax in the bottom of our jar, like I'll show you. We want to put a little bit of wax down in the bottom of this jar here. And then we're going to set our candle in there and let that harden. That'll keep our candle upright. I want that to cool a little bit. And actually we can put our candle in there. We want to keep that in the middle of the jar as much as possible. Our wax there has dried for the most part. Need to open up a door here or something to speed that up. All right, so we're letting that wax cool with our candle in there. And while we're doing that, let's get started on our pop can stove, and we'll come back to the Yuko candle. As you can see, I've still got some of this chicken wire here. It's not really, it's like garden wire. we might use that. I don't know yet. But while we're waiting for our candle, let's talk for a second about stoves. So you can use, for example, a stove like this. Of course, I'm holding up a isobutane fuel canister. And they go with these torches, usually, that people buy. And they screw onto the isobutane fuel canister, and then you got yourself a stove. And people like those because you can control the intensity of the flame and stuff like that. You know, they don't do too good. They don't do too good when it gets very, very cold. They don't do too that great. And I've had that happen to me where you can't really get it started. And you got to kind of heat it up under your clothes and stuff like that until you can kind of get it started because it's just been so frigid cold. Another option that a lot of people like are what I call pop can stoves. And a pop can stove got its name because people started making them out of pop cans. Now you can go on the internet and you can spend a lot of money for these pop can styled stoves, like this titanium one I'm holding up here, it was fine. It come with some little legs on it, and I ripped those legs off. I didn't like them. But it's got a little tiny dot in the middle of it, and you pour your fuel in there, and then you light that puddle, and then it'll flame out just like a stovetop using regular rubbing alcohol. The reason I don't like this one in particular is because you have to burn it all the way out. There's no way of getting that rubbing alcohol out of there to pour it back into your container, whatever you're carrying your rubbing alcohol in. So that brings us to these pop can stoves here, which I think a lot of people are calling them now alcohol stoves, something like that. I still call them pop can stoves because the first time I ever saw them, that's what it was. It was a pop can made into a stove. But the nice thing about these is that they come in different parts. They've got a sealed top. I've got alcohol in this, and that's nice that you can fill these up with alcohol, and you don't have to carry like an extra bottle of alcohol. You just carry this with the alcohol in it, light it, and when you're done using it, they come with these tops that you can then use to snuff out the flame and preserve all that alcohol for later use. But like I said, there's a lot of pleasure in making these things for yourself, and maybe you're homeless, maybe you're on hard times, and you still want to have your gear together. And you know, if you go to like Walmart or the drugstore to get rubbing alcohol, it don't cost nothing. Now I know a lot of people like to use HEET, H-E-E-T, for their pop stoves. I don't. I like to use regular, like 90% rubbing alcohol because it's so easy to get. You can get it anywhere. You don't have to be at a hardware store or at a Walmart to find it, like you do a lot of times with these other types of fuel. What we're going to do here is we're going to make our own pop can stove. It's going to work the same way, and we're actually going to try to get it lit. Again, our candle's cooling. I'm really happy with the way that I poured a little bit more wax into the bottom of that than I intended to, but that's not a bad thing. Once this candle burns down and you hit the wax that I nestled it in, then that wax will burn also. And so it'll give you a much longer life on that candle. All right, let's take our camera over to my workbench here, and let's work with this pop can and turn it into a stove. Let me show you this again real close up. That's what a pop can stove looks like. Fuel goes there in the middle, and then when you light that, you pour that full of fuel and you leave a puddle in there, and then you light that puddle. As this gets hot, then this will flame out. The flame will come out of these holes, just like a regular gas stove top. So that's what we're going to kind of do with the pop can. And the first thing I want to do is I want to try to cut this out right here. What I thought might work for this is just the can opener on my Swiss Army knife. All right, and then we want to put some holes around here. We don't want the holes to be very large, so I've got to be careful here. I made that too large. I think I have an awl. Yeah, I do. That's the better way to do it, right there. Yeah, look at that. That's the way to do that. You just want to take an awl. And I'm making these holes way too bigger than they need to be. That one especially. I'm bummed that I made that hole too big, but you're getting the idea. Now we want to cut this can in two. Because we're going to want one side of this to go down in the other side. Tell you what, I'm so bummed that I made those holes too big. I think I'm gonna go get a different can to use as that top. Let's go do that. There we go. I think we got a pretty good pop can stove going here. All right, that is a pop can stove. Let's light her up. Turn off the lights so we can see this baby work. As that heats up, that should begin coming out of those holes. Yeah, there you go. Pop can stove. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's go back over to our main camera, take one last look at what we want to look at. And that is our Yuko candle. All right, so we've got our Yuko candle. I want to poke some holes in the cap of that, and I want to tie a wire around there and a handle. We're going to have to do that later. I've got somebody just dropped in. So before I was so rudely interrupted by my friend Jeffrey here and my daughter Eloise.
I was not here while you were doing it.
But I wanted to finish up this video before we can get started so I can edit this all tomorrow. Where we left off, we had done the pop can stove and now the Yuko candle lantern alternative. And here I just got this little honey bottle with a cap. The way that the Yukos work is that they have a glass encasing. You need oxygen that can feed in at the top. There's two ways we could do this. Oh, there's something we want to do too. We want to make a bail handle for this glass so that you could hang that on a tree or something. But there's two ways we could do this. We could come up with something that would keep that lid elevated above that jar so that that could burn. And you could do that just by creating like a little wire structure. I think the best thing to do though is just to poke some holes in that. Once we put that bail handle on there, you could hang that without anything. And I think that would keep most of the wind out of there. Keep most of the wind from blowing that candle out. Let's go ahead and make that. I'm going to poke some holes in the lid. And then we'll light it and see how it works. So let's do that. So for those of you who are just listening, I got some of that garden wire here. I just want to cut a portion of it off. That's what we're going to use as the bail on that Yuko replacement. Put that down there. This jar that I've put this candle in has a lip around it, just like most jars do. And so the way I reckon is we can tighten that around that real nice. There we go. Let's do it like that. It's got to be nice and tight. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to wind that. There we go. Even got my glove stuck in there. what all the girls say. There we go. All right. Now we've got this bail handle on there. And you know what? You could poke some holes in that lid, but unless it's raining, it wouldn't be necessary. But you could poke some holes in the top of that lid. That would let that breathe just fine. But let me show you what this thing looks like lit. There we go. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind about that is, as far as that bail goes, and I might want to tighten that even up a little bit more. But that's going to get super hot. I mean, super hot because of that flame. So you don't want to just be reaching over and grabbing that thing to take it down from a tree limb or anything like that. You want to make sure that you blow out that flame and let that flame cool before you go grabbing it.
Or you have some fireproof gloves.
There we go. So you could hang that on a tree just fine. And that would keep most of the wind off of that candle, especially as it burns down. And then when you're done with that, as soon as that cools down, it's still pretty warm. You can put your lid right back on and carry that through the woods. Easy peasy. There you go. So there's a Yuko candle replacement. Doesn't weigh nothing. That'll burn for days on end. And
it works good.
You heard my daughter say it again?
It works good.
It works real good. All right, folks. Well, thanks for joining us for this episode of The Practical Woodsman. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've got all this fun waiting for me, so I'm going to get going. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, everybody.
All right, so I've got my hands full of stuff, but I'm going to try to show this off anyway. This fleece here, I'm at Walmart. This fleece is made out of polyester. Now you could pay $100 or something like that out from REI or LL Bean. Like I said, my hands are full, but that's $10. Look at this. $10 for that here at Walmart. It's made out of the same stuff, polyester. It's the same weight, does the same stuff as any of those highfalutin expensive brands of polyester fleeces, you know, soft polyester fleece. Man, I'll tell you, that's a great deal. Moving on.